20 years ago, the population here was 90% Portuguese, and now it's 1%.
Lisbon, the largest city in Portugal, has seen a surge in mass migration. Under the previous government, Portugal had one of the most open border schemes in Europe,
Também que, estando aqui as equipas de reportagem de todos os canais,
creating a backlog of over 400,000 pending immigrant cases that are aimed to be solved by the summer of 2025.
You go there, you feel like you're in Portugal. You don't feel like you're in Portugal in Lisbon.
It's like we go outside, they come here, and this is happening all over the world.
The influx of migrants from poorer nations such as Nepal, India, Pakistan and Bangladesh is said to have created a social discontent with the locals, with accusations of increased criminality within communities and lack of integration.
Bad smell, criminality, insecurity, they're not working, they're living off of welfare.
Additionally, with Portugal facing a housing crisis,
Instead of blaming these guys, why don't the government just build more housing to fit the 12 sisters and brothers?
or is Lisbon just full? Does multiculturalism work? Should Portugal be so welcoming? And although immigration laws have become stricter, is it too little too late? So I went to Lisbon to find out for myself. Join me.
Okay, so I'm in the main centre of Lisbon here, and as you can see, it's very, very touristy. Lots of tourists come here obviously to join a holiday, but if you look very closely, the workers, they're not Portuguese. Most of them are from Southeast Asia. You've got lots of Indians, Pakistanis, and kind of similar to what we're seeing all over Europe. When you enter the more touristy areas, you get also different diversities and cultures in those tourist hotspots. Got a beggar here. Yeah, and you've got guys like this guy in the white hoodie, probably just selling hash. A lot of drug dealers on the street I've noticed as well. So kind of what happens, you know, you get low-skilled workers who come here, but you also get a couple of criminals who just stand on the street selling drugs. I mean, they're not gonna chat to me whilst I'm filming, but that's why they're kind of just lingering on the street corners. One thing I noticed in Lisbon, especially in the city centre, that you do get a lot of beggars, and they all congregate in these kind of areas, as you can see here, literally outside the church, you know, using the generosity of the locals and religious people, I guess. But look at it, a lot of people are sitting around kind of doing nothing. Yeah, it happens a lot. I've seen it everywhere. They're not tourists as well. It's clear they actually do live here. And yeah, here you see a lot of them congregating, just sitting about.
After struggling to find Portuguese locals to interview, I eventually came across some people in Lisbon who were either from here or had lived here long enough.
What's your thoughts on migration in Portugal?
I think it's definitely increased in the last years. Even I've lived here for 3 years and I can already tell it's just skyrocketed. I mean, it's a good thing, but it's also a little bit difficult for locals.
Recently it has been a little out of control. Not that there are too many people entering, but that the people that do enter aren't offered the commodities so they can live a good life with a good life quality as they hoped when they came to our country. And so they have to resort to sometimes a life of crime and etc. And that's where a lot of the stereotypes from migration come.
They should know the basics, and we should be able to work with them and offer them conditions. If they don't have conditions, it's stupid. They shouldn't be here.
There's been studies on how it depends on what kind of immigration. So like high qualified immigration is good for the country that is receiving that. Also, if we promote this idea of if you're a good and a skilled person, just go to a place where they'll pay you better or where the conditions are better, then are you giving up on your own culture? Are you giving up on your own country? That's not good. Like, you see, that's basically what happens with Africa a lot. Like, the brightest people get opportunities to move somewhere else, and they learn and they get skills, and then they don't want to go back, which is understandable. Like, you get used to better conditions, but then what happens is those countries get stuck with the bad people in power because the good people just leave.
Should we be letting in illegal migrants into the country?
I think they shouldn't be illegal. That's the main point. And the big problem starts from how they arrive here. They have to have the proper conditions to come here so they are proper welcome.
What about those who are refugees and fleeing war? Do you think they should come to Portugal when they say they should go to the first safe country?
I think Portugal is a good option. I think Portugal has like a good system. The healthcare is good, and yeah, I would advise them to come here.
Definitely. Yeah, I'm all for helping out people that are escaping war and need a safe place to live and stay.
Why should Portugal, who is not like a very stable economy, take refugees from another part of the world instead of the neighbor countries of places in conflict? Why don't they take their neighbors who are more culturally similar to them. Like, why should the Europeans take in refugees from the Middle East? I'm not saying we should be cold to that. I'm not saying we should demonize them, but maybe there's better ways to help. It goes back to what I was saying, which is, does it really help to bring people here? You're just letting the bad people there take control, you know? Like, maybe we should help people there.
I don't know which is better for them, in fact. So if Portugal is easier for them to reach it, if I was in a difficult situation in my life, I would go for the best place that will welcome me.
Some migrants obviously do work and work very hard. What about those who are just a strain on the system and claim social housing and welfare?
It depends. I don't know, some people have it really hard and they can't find jobs. That's why they try to benefit from the system. But I think they should like benefit, but also like try to contribute to society.
No, social credit, hell no. But I'm against that in any case. Like, I think we should have charity for sure, but I don't think we should take from some people to give to others.
I wouldn't say give them handouts. Of course, some financial help is always welcome, but I believe that the most important thing is job integration, because most of them come here, don't know Portuguese, don't know English, and so they can't get a job even if they want to. So I would say that the government needs to provide ways for them to be able to provide for themselves.
Some people say that the migrants that do come over should integrate rather than kind of impose their culture into areas that they live. Do you think that that's a good thing or a bad thing?
I agree to a certain extent. I think they should definitely like try to like integrate, but not get like assimilated, if it's a word. Yeah.
There's a saying that in Rome you are Roman, you know, Romanian, no, Roman.
Yeah.
So when you go to a country, you have to have in mind that you have to respect their culture and in a way kind of be inserted in their culture. Obviously not forgetting yours, but you should not enforce your culture.
Do you think that's happening right now in Lisbon?
It might happen because not everyone thinks like that.
If people live a certain way and you want to move there, it's because they're doing something better than wherever you come from. So you cannot go with an attitude of, oh, I'm going to bring something new. Like, no, because you should adapt. It's like you don't go to someone's house and say you should start walking barefoot or you should paint your house blue or something. No, like you might suggest, but you should not go with an aggressive attitude or something.
Do you think we should be importing cultures that are similar to Portugal, such as maybe Brazilian people who speak Portuguese?
Like importing only those people?
Or have more of those than, say, other cultures?
I think it's natural that people will find places similar to their cultures to migrate to. Let's say me, I found Portugal because it's similar to my culture.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea, but also we need to like have in mind that Portugal colonized different countries in Africa, so I think it's good to bring them here as well.
Sure.
They speak the language.
Some Portuguese people feel like they should be kind of ashamed of their history, and that's why they're less patriotic. Is that kind of like a, you know, like guilt tripping them in a way?
Maybe. I feel like, yeah, they should be ashamed to a certain extent because they colonized many countries in Africa, but I think it's all good, like they're giving them an opportunity.
Do you think at the minute Lisbon is importing too many migrants from countries that don't share similar cultures and values to Portugal?
The cultural aspect is a very sensitive topic in Lisbon right now because there has been some discrimination because of that. But I wouldn't say that there are too many migrants. I would say that there are too many for the conditions we are able to provide.
Most people that come from those regions, they're honest people who are very hardworking, love to work and do their part to help the community. So, at least from my opinion, that's the vast majority. If you see right here, most of these Uber Eats guys are like Indian and stuff, you know. They're just working hard day and night, so.
As you saw previously, you get a lot of people selling stuff on the street, and here you got this big blanket of scarves, and what happens is when they have all these scarves and a big blanket, when the police comes they can just quickly lift it up and run away. Here's what you have. So yeah, kind of what happens when cities get overrun by these types of migrants in certain countries. That's what they do to literally get by, literally flooded with it. Look at it here as well. I mean, that's the kind of argument that people make, is that there's not enough local people here. It's just literally going to be filled with migrants doing this kind of stuff. I mean, it's not something you expect to see in Portugal. Maybe one of these third world countries you might find this sort of thing, but That's what ends up happening. Not my son. Yeah, you can't really go a couple meters now without seeing any of these people selling all sorts of stuff, from scarves to shirts. I mean, this is what happens. This is kind of feels a bit like Paris, and this is what happens when you just get mass migration. People just find anything they can sell. They can't work in the shops because they probably don't even speak the language. And that's what they kind of result to. And it turns into this kind of, yeah, I mean, what do you even call it? I mean, look at it. Behind all the fancy shops and touristy areas that you see, this is reality of how Lisbon is becoming. I couldn't find hardly any Portuguese people here. Obviously, I know it's a tourist destination, but bloody hell, you expect to see the odd Portuguese person walking around, but you can't. Just full of tourists, and the people who are working are migrants, even from Southeast Asia or Africa. I mean, no locals at all. Absolutely flooded with it. I mean, homeless man here begging on the street. So there must be poverty with the locals as well as migrant people coming over. I mean, nothing wrong with people working hard and trying to earn a living, but when does it come a point where there's just too much of it? And how can a country accommodate so many in the future? How do you guys feel in Lisbon at the minute? Do you feel like migrants are taking over and the kind of culture's being pushed out?
Completely, yeah. So if you go to other places in Portugal, it's completely different. Like Lisbon is becoming one of those like big cities of the world. Like it's not big in population, but the environment is the same. Like it's going to that point of like, let's say Paris a few years ago or New York. Crime is not so bad here, but it's starting to get worse as well.
You can see it on the street. Yeah,
yeah,
it's the demographic changing.
Yeah, more homeless people, and you definitely feel less Portuguese. As a Portuguese person, you feel less Portuguese in Lisbon than in most places, even in the other big cities, like not as big, but like Porto or Braga, which are the other two big cities in Portugal. You go there, you feel like you're in Portugal. You don't feel like you're in Portugal in Lisbon, which is ironic because a lot of the characteristical places in Portugal, of the Portuguese traditional places, are in Lisbon. But those feel like tourist attractions and not like the environment itself, you know what I mean?
It's too much for us. And that is bad. Too many Indians don't speak Portuguese, or enemy English don't speak English. That is a big problem to speak them.
Yeah, you know, that's like the whole point of migration. I think always look for a better place of living. Maybe for us this isn't good enough anymore, but for them this is better than the place they were before. So if you can always find something better, maybe if you go to Germany and you ask them, what do you think about the amount of Portuguese people that have been migrating here, they'll probably say the same thing, you know.
Do you think it's more to do with the government, why there's some problems in Portugal right now?
Yes, of course.
What are some issues that the Portuguese people are facing?
Our minimum wage is crazy. It's like 800 euros per month. A bedroom here in a shared apartment in Lisbon is an average of 500. So it's really difficult for us to keep an even way of life, you know.
Some people argue that, yeah, for example, minimum wage is so low that migrants coming over, say from Southeast Asia or Asia in general, are lowering those wages because they can accept a lower salary.
Yes, as soon as we started, and I already worked in hospitality per se, like in kitchen, and when we started saying no to the salaries, well, they started getting. I even read an article that they had to hire people from the Philippines because they were accepting. But in the end, that happens because they have to pay a lot of taxes when you have a restaurant or when you have something. So in the end, they don't have the possibility to raise their salaries because they have to pay a lot to the government.
Small local businesses, Portuguese people are not opening them. Those are being opened, like especially downtown and in main Lisbon, those are being opened by Ukrainians, Dutch, Irish, English, French, sometimes like richer people. Like we have a lot of immigration from Bangladesh, mostly are not rich, definitely, but there's a few that come here with a lot of money and they take advantage that they have a lot of people from their background as like a workforce that they can kind of cheat on.
Why do you think Portugal is so attractive at the minute?
Well, good weather, first of all, and I think we have a system that works and that, well, it's not perfect because we have some immigrants without conditions, but we have a system that kind of works and offers people that live in countries that are not even close to Portugal a chance to live better and to get money for their families.
I've heard from I've heard from migrants that it's easier to seek asylum here and get a permanent residence.
Do you think that's down to the government being too soft? They need to be stricter on migration and the borders?
No, I think they should stop incentivizing, which is different. I don't think we should restrict people that want to come here. I think that if people come here with bad intentions and the culture is strong enough, those people will not get an easy life and they will have to move out, or they will not progress in life.
Say the government don't start helping businesses to employ more Portuguese people, won't there soon come a time where there's not many Portuguese people left to employ? They've all gone to another country.
Yes, that is happening all over. We had, at some point, we had a really huge crisis in like 2008 or 2009. I don't know for sure. But I remember that our prime minister, he told everyone in the conference, like, guys, there's really nice jobs outside of Portugal. So it's like we go outside, they come here, and this is happening all over the world.
Do you think the people coming over at the minute are just economic migrants?
In the sense that they just come here for money.
Yeah.
The lower, like the poorest people, yeah, they only come here for the money. There's some like I said, the people that open businesses, they come here for the good weather. They come here because Portugal is cheap for them, which is also economic. Maybe they like that people here are nice. Well, it's not purely economical. It's other kinds of conditions that they're looking for. I don't see anyone moving here because of the culture. I don't see that like in the terms of traditional culture. Some people move, for example, to Paris because they romanticize, or to Amsterdam, or even to the US because they romanticize the culture. People don't do that in Portugal. They come here for utilitarian reasons. Oh, it rains a lot in my country, so I'm going to go to Portugal because it rains less. Oh, I can't make money in my country, so I'm going to go to Portugal because I will be able to make money, even if not a lot. Basically, Portugal becomes a, how can I say, dormitory? Like people come here to sleep and work, and the culture is dying, you know.
Do you think it could be problematic just by welcoming everyone? Do you think Portugal should do that?
I don't know. I don't think it's problematic, but too many people in a small country.
I don't think it's about the country. It's about more the Lisbon itself, you know.
Right.
Instead of coming to Lisbon, you could go like, not elsewhere, but Lisbon in specific, it's
very crowded.
Yeah, very crowded right now. Yeah.
Like Martim Muniz, I'm not sure if you've been there. There's a huge Indian community. Like most of the restaurants there are, you know, Indian. A lot of Japanese stores too. It's if you go there, Martim Muniz, by yourself, you'll see how big the Indian community is there.
So I went there and met with Afonso, the founder of Reconquista, the largest political movement in Portugal that isn't a political party. They represent the Portuguese youth who feel that immigration has spiraled out of control and that Portugal is losing its identity. But before we do that,
as you can see, I'm not in Portugal, I'm in London. And as you can imagine, traveling around, the costs add up. That's why I partnered with Saily, the sponsor of this video. Before going on any trip, I make sure I have Saily installed. There's no need to change out SIM cards or waste time going to a local shop trying to find one, or have the fear of coming back with a £100 phone bill after traveling. They're an affordable eSIM, which is basically a digital version of a SIM card. I like how convenient it is to use. Just select whatever country you're in, choose your data plan and enter the promo code before checkout to get online. Now I can make calls and use maps to find Martim Muniz Square without having to worry about my data. So if you're planning to go anywhere, you can get an exclusive 15% discount on Saily's data plans using my link and code Wesley Winter. What a bargain. Please hit the link in the description or pin comment to download Saily, not only to support the channel, but to get a great deal, saving you time and hassle whilst traveling. Thank you, Saily, for sponsoring this video and making it possible. Back to Lisboa.
It's actually very ironic because this is the Martim Muniz Square. And Martim Muniz was one of the big Portuguese people who helped to reconquistar Lisbon. He helped to take that castle there that you can see.
Oh yeah.
So we took that from the Moors, from the Muslims, and then they gave this square the name Martim Muniz in his honor. And now, unfortunately, but very ironically, it's full of immigrants, third world immigrants.
And when did you start to notice it?
Well, I started to notice it 3-4 years ago. António Costa was our socialist prime minister. He changed a lot of the immigration laws, nationality laws. He made a lot of agreements with Morocco, India, Pakistan, Brazil, Angola to have immigrants coming here. And as you can see, we're on a work day. Today is Thursday at 4 p.m. and these people are not working. You can see they're not actually producing anything. They're just sitting around looking at us as if we are the actual foreigners.
Right.
They're looking at me as a Portuguese person as if I am the actual foreigner. They're not really producing anything, they're just sitting around.
But isn't that sometimes the case with diversity and multiculturalism, that sometimes you're just going to get low-skilled workers? And I mean, if they don't come here, where do you think they should go?
Yeah, well, if they don't come here, I really don't care where they should go. I think they should solve their own problems in their own countries. And it shouldn't be up to us, Portuguese people, to help these people out. And even culturally, I think we've allowed this xenophile idea to take charge of our culture, where we feel a sense of guilt and we feel we need to repay these cultures and these people by bringing them here and allowing them to have easier conditions than our own people. It's really become, these areas really become a metaphor, not because it's, let's say, an exception, but because it is an eco-space that represents, as I said, not an exception, but actually represents what's happening slower but progressively, but surely, in a lot of different other areas. They used to say, look, Lisbon is invaded, Lisbon is ethnically replaced, but it's not just Lisbon, it's the Algarve, it's areas of Porto, it's Braga with the Brazilian community, it's areas of Alentejo. We have 25% immigrants in Portugal. That's a fourth of our population.
That's more than Dublin. I was in Dublin not too long ago. I think there's about 20%.
Yeah.
You're saying 25. That's
25, yeah.
And I heard it's also increased, over 33% or something since last year? Why has it been such a big jump?
Actually, in the last 3 years, our legal immigration numbers went from 400,000 to more than 1,400,000. So in 3 years, it went up more than 1 million. Actually, it might be like 5 years, it went up more than 1 million. Just the legal immigrants. So that's just the legal immigrants. If you factor in also the illegal immigrants, which will probably be around 500,000 or maybe more, then there is also the ones who already have Portuguese citizenship. They're not Portuguese, but they pretend to be Portuguese because they have a card saying they're Portuguese.
Right. I mean, and just walking down the street,
I
don't really feel like we're in Portugal.
Yeah, we're not really. We're not really in Portugal here because there's no Portuguese shops, no Portuguese people. Yeah. And look, we don't have anything against these people. We don't have anything against them. We wish them all the very best in India, in Pakistan, or in Bangladesh. But here, actually, we would actually like to have our own culture, our own businesses, our own people employed, our own people as employees, as employers. And this is actually not the case. You look around to your right, to your left, there's not a single Portuguese shop here, but there's like 20 phone shops. You don't need 20 phone shops in a 20-meter square radius.
But people could also argue these are businesses and they're adding to the economy, adding to the, people are buying and selling. Money's moving around in these spaces.
Yeah, the Portuguese people are not buying from here. They're just selling to each other. So if they're selling to each other, it means they're not adding to our economy. It means if they were not here, we wouldn't require these services. So these services, these businesses are not really required. They're not really helping our people. And actually because of the wage dumping and because of the lower prices that they sell their products with, also because of a lot of big numbers of them coming into the same houses, it's actually creating more economic problems than it's solving. Even if it was not creating more economic problems than it's solving, I would still argue that our country is not a business. We are a nation, not a business. So we should actually put the ethnic and cultural aspects before we put money. Yeah. But even considering that, it's actually creating more economic problems than it's generating.
But do you reckon these people are to blame for example, shortage of housing or housing prices?
These people are not to blame. These people are not to blame. Yeah. The government is to blame for allowing them to come here.
Right.
The government is to blame for allowing them to come here. Here, there's a building there that used to belong to Portuguese people, and now it's been taken over by the government to create a mosque. So this area here used to be Portuguese people living in these flats everywhere, and now there's basically no Portuguese people. You can still see over there a Portuguese flag, because an old Portuguese lady still lives there.
Right.
But that's of course an exception.
So is it kind of like this feeling that you're being overtaken in a way, and losing your heritage and culture?
Yeah, and we didn't really ask for this. There's no benefit for us. We were never asked. We never agreed to it. And it's actually creating a lot of problems. The insecurity you feel in the streets, Actually, the smell is not so good. There's a lot of dirty areas in the town because of the immigration. Criminality is also through the roof. There has never been higher criminality. And then they will use this excuse that people are here working. But actually, if you actually analyze the situation, most are not here working. There was a study done by the Eurostat that proved that only 23%, and I want people to notice this, Eurostat 2022 analyzed and came to the conclusion that only 23% of the population of Europe that's from an immigrant background is actually here with a working visa. So the other 77% are not here working. They don't have a working visa. So if you look here, there's a lot of papers on this wall of this building. And basically it's saying that the people of this area were replaced by immigrants and that this building here is being overtaken by the government. The government is actually taking it over from the people without asking them, like they do in communist countries, to allow space for the immigrants to move in.
So is this
and to create a mosque.
So, right, so is this kind of like a refugee immigrant housing? What?
It's probably going to be a mosque.
Right.
That's the project. And people are writing on these walls that they didn't agree to this.
Yeah.
The government just took it. They just took it and they're going to build a mosque here.
Yeah, I mean, he seems like a local.
Yeah.
Probably Portuguese.
Yeah, if you want, you can speak to him. If you want me to.
Hello. We're making a video just about...
Fala português? Fala inglês? Não.
Não.
I'm going to ask him what's his opinion about the situation. Qual é que é a sua opinião sobre esta situação toda aqui com os imigrantes? Martim Muniz?
É uma situação catastrófica.
Catastrófica. It's a catastrophe. He's saying it's a catastrophe. Então explique-nos só o que é que vai acontecer aqui com este prédio. What's going to happen with this building? O que é que vai acontecer com este prédio?
A Câmara expropriou-me.
Expropriou?
A mim, que eu era dono destes prédios. As câmaras expropriou-me e não me quer pagar em condições para fazer a mesquita para eles.
Ok, portanto, so he's saying that the government took over this building from him, it expropriated the building from him without any due payment, and now they're going to build a mosque.
Crazy. So how long have you lived here?
My life is nothing.
Yeah. Wow. This is how they treat the local Portuguese in Lisbon. Literally, this man. How long have you lived here?
Há quanto tempo é que vive aqui?
2009.
2009. 15 years.
Wow.
Calma.
Por exemplo, 20 years ago, I'm going to ask him 20 years ago how many Portuguese people there were in this street. Há 20 anos, quantos portugueses é que viviam aqui?
Era a rua cheia. 90%.
90%. E agora é 1%.
Agora é 1%.
20 years ago, the population here was 90% Portuguese, and now it's 1%.
And obviously they're going to build a mosque here. Where will you go next? Do you have a plan?
Ele fala muito rápido.
Para onde é que você vai a seguir, se eles construírem a mesquita?
Para onde é que eu vou?
Sim.
Provavelmente para o cemitério.
To the cemetery.
Meu amigo, eu tenho.
Não?
Eu nesta loja.
É isso, não é? Algumas chegam a ter 40 e 50 empregados. He's saying that most of the people who come here come with fictitious contracts, so fake contracts from India, Pakistan, etc., Bangladesh and other countries. And a lot of these shops have like 40 or 50 employees that come here with fake contracts in order to come here legally, let's say. So these are all tricks to explore the system. And also something that you will also notice is there's no women around, because the women, Muslim women, they don't work. Even if they're here, they're staying at home every day, whilst our Portuguese women are working and can't have kids because of that. And you can see it's only men. It's only men, military-aged men. So it's actually not organic, it's actually not natural. It's just men, 40-year-old men, 30-year-old men. Most of them look at you like you are the actual foreigner, and I'm a Portuguese person. And some of them even look at you aggressively. And,
eu aluguei esta loja a senhor dos telemóveis.
Sim.
Indiano.
Sim.
Eu cheguei aqui uma vez, tinha aqui 14 aqui dentro.
14 a viver?
Não, a trabalhar.
E quantos é que trabalhavam verdadeiramente? Um ou dois?
Um chegava.
Pois. He's saying that he once lended this shop here to an Indian businessman, which had a phone shop. And there were just 1 or 2 workers, and then 2 months after there were 14 workers with fake contracts, and most of them were not actually.
They sell the businesses, get them the visas, and bring the whole family
with fake contracts, and then the whole family can come here through family reunion, and that's how they do it.
So you both feel like people are exploiting the system.
As pessoas estão a explorar o sistema, não é? Os imigrantes estão a explorar.
Eles próprios agora estão a explorar o sistema.
Exato. E muitos vivem também de subsídios, não? Subsídios, rendimentos,
sim, também há
não
muito.
trabalham, não?
Também há muito. Também há muito.
people might also argue, instead of blaming these guys, why don't the government just build more housing to fit the 12 sisters and brothers that are coming from God knows where?
Yeah, look, our economy should not work to help the needs of the immigrants. It should work to help the needs of the Portuguese people.
Yeah.
So we shouldn't be building more houses just for the immigrants. Actually, what we should do is we should not have the immigrants, so that we can have all this free housing that is already built. There's no need to invest anymore, and these houses could be occupied by Portuguese people.
But in a kind of fantasy world, is there kind of a time where you can, house everyone? House the Portuguese, house the immigrants?
Honestly,
is that possible?
Just careful here. Honestly, even if that was possible, I think that's not what we should do. We shouldn't be housing these immigrants from the third world, Africans, Asians, Indo-Hispanics, South Americans. They don't feel our culture. So we need to ask ourselves what type of country we want to be, and we don't want to be a country with these massive numbers of Indians and Pakistanis, because they don't fit our culture. They will never adapt. They will never be a productive part of society. They are not Portuguese people. They don't understand what it means to be Portuguese. They have no loyalty to the country. A lot of them are criminals. They have a different culture. They mistreat women. They have a lot of, as you know, in India and Pakistan, some of the highest rates in terms of percentage. Their culture is not really coherent with our culture. They will never really adapt. They don't want to adapt. You could make the argument that all of these people would come here and they would adapt and mix into our society, but it's not what's happening actually. It's actually a different part of society. It's actually a parallel society with their own rules. He was just saying we need to adapt to their rules, not them adapting to our rules, because it's just how it is. These people have had their culture for hundreds of years. They're not going to come here and magically just learn our values and our culture and our way of life. What they're going to do is they're going to create a parallel culture, a parallel way of life that's actually a detriment to our own.
But how can the government just let the Portuguese just kind of, look, it says that we've got a police car as we're here in the neighbourhood. I haven't seen one the whole time I've been in Lisbon. But, why is the government let this happen? Why do the local Portuguese, such as that man 10 years ago, have now all moved out? I mean, why couldn't they stay in that area to begin with? That's the question.
Yeah, well, this was an old area, so most people who live here, they've actually probably passed away. Okay. But the fact that they don't have offspring and kids to populate this area with also is a testament to the deeper root causes of the problem, which is the demographic problem. Our population is not having kids, and it's only growing due to immigration. So we're actually being replaced with immigrants. Considering our own people are not having kids, we're not creating families, then the population is growing through the growth of immigration, which literally means we're being replaced.
And what about those who are specifically fleeing war, especially those in, Syria or these countries? They don't tend to go to Arabic countries.
Yes.
Why do you think that is? It seems like Portugal, Europe, UK is the promised land.
Yeah, they've always used this excuse that these people are fleeing from war, but they're not. And if they were fleeing from war, they don't need to come to Europe. But even if they were fleeing from war, I think that it's not the time and the moment to actually help people from abroad. I think we should be having a conversation not of who can come in, but who must go out. The framing of the immigration question is not who can we allow to come in because we already have too many, is who must we make sure goes out of our country, leaves our country.
But I think there's also just like an underlying issue like poverty, walking around Lisbon, I've just seen so many homeless people, beggars, people selling stuff on the street. I feel like there's other issues to play, like maybe they are connected, but there are some social, economic issues that are just on the street that you can't miss.
I mean, we are in one of the worst areas of Lisbon, that's why there are so many beggars. But there's economic problems, and that's another reason why we really shouldn't have the numbers of immigrants that we do, because, as I said before, they actually hurt the economy more than they help. Actually, there have been a lot of studies conducted in Denmark, for example, and Switzerland, that have identified that the governments of their respective countries would actually save hundreds of millions of euros if they didn't have the immigrants. All throughout Europe, there have been identifiable trends of high numbers of immigrants living off of welfare, and this is creating economic problems. Actually, immigrants from Africa and Asia, specifically the Indostan region, are actually creating more debt than they are helping the economy. There have been a lot of studies, but they just are not promoted because they don't fit the narrative.
What if there was like some sort of cap, you know, like a set number, you know, like...
I think that's a good idea. That's a good idea to have a set number of immigrants. But as I was saying to you before, I think it's not only the absolute number, it's also the quality of the immigrants.
Sure.
I would rather have 500,000 Germans in Portugal or French people in Portugal than 100,000 Indians. Because
you know what?
These people...
Go ahead of us, please. I don't want to listen to your
you see, these yeah, do you have a problem with that?
Yeah, I do.
What's racist about what he
I'm
said?
in my own country, I can speak whatever I want.
But what's
I'm
racist
racist.
about
What's the problem?
Racist.
Yeah, what's the problem?
That's great.
Yeah, so just accept it. Yeah, I'm entitled to be whatever I want.
Yeah, but why do you think he's racist?
You're not entitled to speak to me in that way.
He's literally pinpointing different ethnic groups. Like people are not immigrating here from everywhere.
But like,
Does he have statistics on the Asians that are moving here? Are on welfare?
But
No, I don't think
we just walked through an area that was very big demographic of immigrants. His argument is that these places are kind of overtaking the
You're
locals.
walking through like a very small select part of the city, right?
Mm.
Like in every city, you're British, clearly.
Right.
I'm British and Canadian. There are very specific pockets of ethnic areas, which is not necessarily showing you the full demographic.
Right. But what about when, for example, one argument is that they're importing low-skilled workers who aren't benefiting the economy.
So I mean, who's doing the job then?
I mean, the Portuguese would, but they can't afford to earn the wages, is the argument.
I don't know. I feel like universally, even if you're in Canada and the US,
Yeah.
people that are living there, born there, maybe first, second generation, don't want to do the jobs that immigrants are doing. And you're clearly not white fully.
I'm half, yeah, but I understand the issues that are happening in
I
society.
understand issues too, but I don't think you can blame it on a specific race or ethnic division.
Yeah, but look,
It's too simplistic.
we always had immigration, but it used to be from European countries.
So what difference
And
does that make? You don't. You're
because
telling me
they
that
don't
they're-
share the same culture. They don't share the same culture. They don't share the same religion. They don't share the same way of life. That's a good. I agree with it's a good thing, but we should have.
neo-Nazis
We
moving
should have.
from Germany. You
Can
feel
I
like
get my
that's
point?
Okay?
Why do you call them neo-Nazis?
You're saying
Normal people are
everybody-
neo-Nazis.
Everybody in Europe shares
Why
the
are-
exact same
yes,
culture. Are
yes,
you kidding me?
very similar culture, very similar ethnic background, and also when you are in Portugal, you want to see Portuguese people, right, and Portuguese culture.
I don't know. I'm
The
from
same way.
Canada. We see people
Have you
of all
ever
different
visited?
colors.
Have you ever visited India, for example? Do you see a lot of Portuguese shops in India every street corner? No, you see Indian shops, right? That's positive. I want the Indian people to have their own culture, but don't come and tell us we should have Indian people in Portugal because we don't have any Portuguese people in India. That's real diversity. It's each
makes no
culture
sense,
in their
because
own country.
Portuguese
Each culture in their own country
colonized
is the
India.
real. Yeah, we
There's
did.
an entire state called Goa.
Yeah, we did. Yeah,
Okay,
there's
so
no
then
problem with that. We're not there now. We're not in India now. That was 500 years ago.
But is that also
So,
the argument?
the
then?
basic- the basic point.
But like you said, how you shouldn't be ashamed of your history.
Yeah, we're not ashamed at all.
Yeah, you know.
Actually, we're very proud of it. And you can tell that these people have a cognitive dissonance when they hear the actual nationalistic point of view defendant in the street. She just disrespected me in the street for just defending our own point of view, our own interest.
She's entitled to her opinion, you're entitled to yours.
She's
I mean,
entitled to her
agree to
opinion.
disagree.
Yeah. But the fact that her opinion is based on hate, is based on just pointing her finger at me and starting shouting at me, shows that actually my opinion creates a cognitive dissonance with her. Her opinion doesn't create any cognitive dissonance with me. I can just talk her through my points of view because she is emotionally invested into her own view. I'm not emotionally invested. I can just talk it out calmly, which actually proves that she knows she is wrong, That's why she needs to get loud, she needs to interrupt me. And you see this with the leftists very often. They can't really argue, so they just focus on emotional arguments and they focus on shouting above you and disrespecting you.
No, she was very
we
quick,
don't need to do any.
She was very quick to call you a racist. I mean, how did that make you feel?
Well, to be honest, I don't really mind, to be honest, to be called racist. I would rather be called racist and keep our homelands to ourselves than not be called a racist and lose our own homelands. That's how I feel about it. I really don't care. She will call you a racist whether you are an actual racist or not. Just as in Europe, we've decided to reinvent the wheel and actually defend foreigners above our own, and the result is not pretty.
Yeah, I think also where the message gets lost, especially speaking to women like her, they think you hate foreigners.
Yeah,
That's
we
the
don't.
kind of thing, right?
Exactly. But we don't. So me, for example, I'm a Catholic. I have no hate towards these people. I'm walking amongst them. I have no problem. I have only love towards them. But that's why I want them to keep their own countries, because I also believe that they are more happy in their own countries. We would be more happy, less depressed, less anxious if we had our own culture, our own country with 99% of our people living in it.
And also, like, for example, I'm English. You see a lot, even Portuguese. If you were to go to, say, Brazil to live, you want to live with Portuguese people too, right? You don't want to. You know, people talk about integrated, but you just naturally do when you travel. Find people who you share similarities with.
Exactly, it's been studied. It's been studied in kids as young as 2 or 3 years old. That naturally, even before they are taught racism, supposed racism, they prefer to be around their own kin. That's just a natural instinct, an instinct of survival, and a very healthy instinct. I believe that's very beautiful for you to want to be around your people, to want to prioritize your people, and any nation and any country should be allowed to express that feeling freely. And any nation is allowed to express that feeling, but the European peoples, but the European countries. And that really goes to show that we are the main enemy. European nationalism is the main enemy to the globalist agenda, to the globalist world order.
You put video for people, you have to ask. You don't have to ask the people, not put video.
It's okay.
Yeah, because people see
I was just walking, just getting stabbed. I mean, if you approach these guys, there's a chance 1 out of 10 will maybe stab you.
And they don't want to be on camera. There's a reason for that, isn't there?
Yeah. They're not well-meaning. If they were well-meaning, they would be on camera.
Oh, bro, where are you from? No, I don't smoke.
You sell weed? You want to do interview? Interview.
It's too loud.
Where are you from? Where are you from? Zimbabwe. Okay.
You like Lisbon?
How long have you been?
Point on me.
Yeah, I'm recording myself. How long have you been in Portugal?
Less than a year.
Less than a year, okay. What job are you working now? Do you have any job? No job.
I start job.
I film myself.
You have no job now?
I film myself, don't worry.
Okay. So now you have no job?
Yeah,
okay. So you've been here for 1 year?
Yeah, for 1 year.
And for 1 year you got no job?
Yeah.
So how do you live? Is it welfare from the government?
Yeah, welfare from the government.
Welfare from the government. How much a month?
Just 75 euros.
75 euros.
Yeah, it's fucked up.
Why do you choose Portugal? Why don't you choose other countries? Why Portugal?
Yeah, as a man doesn't belong to nowhere, you know. Anywhere your luck is
But why did you have to leave Zimbabwe? Why didn't you stay in Zimbabwe?
Yeah, because of difficulty, you know.
Yeah. Because here in Portugal is better than Zimbabwe because you can live off of welfare, right? You don't need to work.
Yeah.
In Zimbabwe you need to work, right? But here you don't need really to work, right?
It's the same. I need to work in Zimbabwe, I need to work in Portugal.
But maybe you earn more money here?
But this is a nicer place to be, right?
Yeah, Portugal is more better.
Because you can get
Portugal, you know.
you can get welfare, you don't need to work.
Yeah, good future, you know.
Yeah, good future, welfare.
Yeah, welfare.
So do you feel a lot of Zimbabwean people and Africans move to Portugal because of the welfare?
Yeah, I think because the government is not doing nothing, it's not working.
Yeah.
Do you want to stay in Portugal or do you want to go to another country later? Or?
I've been in many countries. I've been in more than 5 countries.
Right.
What countries have you been in?
France, Italy, Sweden.
And have you ever worked in these countries?
Yeah, I was working.
Just in Portugal you've not worked?
No, I've started working. Okay. My document.
So where do you live here in this place, in this area?
I live in this wood, in the area, you know.
So how do you pay rent?
By the government, you know. The government pays for me.
Ah, the government pays your rent?
Yeah, pays.
Okay. How much do they pay a month?
I didn't know. That's depend to them.
The government pays your rent and they give you 75 euros just for you to help you to eat and. Are there a lot of people in this situation where they just live from the government's money?
A lot, man.
A lot.
Yeah. Man, see, a lot of people are sleeping outside.
So they love Portugal because of that.
No, I don't know. Everybody has his own mind, you know. They got their own mind. I got my own mind.
It's not me. How did you enter Portugal? How do you come inside? Is it a visa or how do you?
I gotta pay me.
Pay you for what?
Yeah.
We're just talking.
Where from?
England.
UK,
yeah.
And you?
I'm from Portugal.
Portugal.
Yeah. But yeah, how did you come into Portugal? Do you have a visa or?
No problem, bro.
Oh, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
I want to have a conversation about my people.
Yeah, it's cool. It's cool. No worries. Yeah. Yeah, very touch, like shady kind of.
Yeah. Look, you just spoke with a random person, so it's not like we selected him, we handpicked him.
Yeah.
And what is his situation? Look, he doesn't want to be on camera and he's aggressive about it. Then he's saying you need to pay him for speaking with him. He's on drugs and drinking in plain daylight at 4 p.m. on a Thursday.
Yeah.
He doesn't work. He gets his house paid for by the government. He gets 75 euros on top of it. And we're supposed to think it's normal. We're supposed to think this is normal. It's not.
Well, yeah, if you don't think it's normal, you're a racist.
Yeah, exactly. But he's not really being a racist. He's just having some common sense, really. It's just common sense.
I've been the one asking you questions today, and we've been talking about multiculturalism. One issue I personally find of it, I've been here for a day. Come night time, there's people offering you drugs. There's certain people here that, aren't respecting the law. And I think as a tourist, that's just a complete put-off. And that's what's happening in Lisbon. And many other big cities, not just Lisbon, London, Paris.
Totally.
And they're the kind of people that you are getting in these city centres at night.
Totally, yeah. We shouldn't really have to live like this. That's the main point it comes down to. We shouldn't have to live like this. We don't need to live like this. And the alternative is to be called racist by people who will call you racist, whether you are an actual racist or not. I think the alternative is better. Mean words are better than a destroyed civilization, in my opinion.
As we move towards an increasingly multicultural society, do we risk losing our national identity in the West? At what point does being an overly accommodating nation become unsustainable? While migration can bring cultural and economic benefits, it also raises challenges around integration, public resources, and different cultural values. Should more efforts be made to build truly integrated communities while balancing the needs of locals and migrants? Let me know, what do you think?